We have some amazing breaking news. A federal judge in Florida just struck down Donald Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. Trump filed the case in Florida hoping that a conservative judge would side with him, and this judge essentially just told him to go kick rocks. They struck the lawsuit down, said it must be rewritten within 28 days, so Donald Trump is probably going to refile the lawsuit. But in their response, the judge wrote, quote, "A complaint is not a megaphone for public relations or a podium for a passionate oration at a political rally or the functional equivalent of the Hyde Park Speaker's Corner." And so essentially they're calling it garbage. Now, this is great news, but Donald Trump's attack on the free speech of his perceived political enemies is not going to stop here. I mean, we know that Donald Trump is going after individuals who he doesn't like. Kimmel just had his show canceled, but he's also now going after non-profit groups. These non-profits are also nonpartisan, not right, not left. They just serve their communities. They help homeless people, veterans, they feed the hungry, and more. And Donald Trump is using Charlie Kirk's shooting to go after them, trying to revoke their tax exempt status, making it impossible for them to operate. So this is an all-out attack on the freedom of speech, whether it be individuals or these groups, and it's something that we all need to be aware of.
Another well-deserved humiliating blow to Trump. Remember the $15 billion lawsuit he filed against the New York Times, which was a joke if you had read it? Well, a judge has tossed it out. Judge strikes down Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. And why? Basically because it rambled and amounted to nothing. And you're supposed to be able to file a brief statement that explains your lawsuit and will prove to a judge that it's worthy of proceeding. And the judge said, this is just a rambling note of nothing. Okay, in a nutshell, Trump filed the massive lawsuit earlier this week accusing the major U.S. publication, New York Times, of being a, quote, mouthpiece for the Democratic Party and of spreading false and defamatory content about him. This is the best part. The court said, I'm reading from The Guardian, that such a complaint is not a public forum, quote, for vituperation, love that word, and invective, or a protected platform to rage against an adversary. In other words, throw your temper tantrum outside of the court system. So in case anyone's keeping score, Trump's $15 billion lawsuit, gone. They won't refile because once you get tossed once, it just gets worse. And then there was Melania, who was suing, I think, for $10 billion against Hunter Biden because he had said that he had read that she met Trump through Jeffrey Epstein, and this infuriated her. Yeah, have you seen the photos? Anyway, we're waiting for your lawsuit, Melania, because that was over a month ago that you were threatening to do that. I guess Hunter Biden was right when they said, will you apologize to her so she doesn't file the lawsuit? And he said, F no. And now a judge is saying F no to Trump, so are we.
A judge just threw out Donald Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times, saying that in all 85 pages, Trump didn't state an actual complaint. He just raved about himself and how great he was and how he was so aggrieved. And the judge was like, this is not like a legal document for a complaint in court is not a document to air your grievances and talk about how great you are. You've got to say what the problem is. Trump waited until like page 82 of 85 or 80 or so to even allege defamation, which is one of the things he's accusing the New York Times of doing, right? Saying mean things about him that aren't true. The rest of it was him raving about himself. Now, what's funny is this was, people said this. People said the document read like Donald Trump was like wrote it himself, which he probably did. It was just like crazy talk, like childish crazy talk. What's going on here, of course, is this is part of Trump's overarching effort to stifle free speech in America. He's threatening everybody, trying to get everybody fired like he did to the comedians, trying to, in this case, threaten the media, either to shut them down or just to scare them into not talking and to not covering him fairly. So New York Times, yeah, $15 billion my ass. This is ridiculous. He's got 28 days to refile, but the judge was pissed.
The judge just tossed Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. So let's break it down. Today, a federal judge dismissed Trump's massive defamation suit against the paper, which claimed that the Times maliciously published false and disparaging statements about him. The court said that Trump's complaint was overly long, tedious, and burdensome, violating procedural rules. The judge wrote that it failed to present a short and plain statement of the claims. Trump now has 28 days to refile a shorter version if he wants the case to continue. If he doesn't, the dismissal becomes final. So make sure to come back for updates, and let me know if you have any comments or questions down below.
Interesting. Trump's $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times has just been rejected by a federal judge. The reason why it was rejected is because U.S. District Judge Stephen Merriday said that Trump's 85-page complaint was more of a PR or political statement rather than a legal document, and there's many opinions in it, but not enough facts. Now, it has not been completely rejected. The judge is giving Trump 28 days to revise the complaint, and they want it no more than 40 pages, not the 85. Please follow for more news. And who do you think the judge is going to side with, Trump or the New York Times?
In an attempt to once again distract Americans from the Epstein files, Donald Trump filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times this week. And it took a federal judge only a few days to respond with,
"What you talking about, Willis?"
Trump is upset over a birthday card that was released by the New York Times from Donald Trump to Epstein that puts him in an incriminating situation and proves what most people already know. He's gross. The federal judge tossed his 85-page lawsuit, saying the language was tedious and had no bearing on the case. The judge even went a step further and criticized Trump and his legal team, saying that a complaint is not a megaphone for public relations or a podium for passionate oration at a political rally. The Trump administration now has 28 days to amend their original complaint to bring it down to 40 pages. Already knowing what he's getting into, this judge warned Trump's legal team this complaint will begin, continue, and end in accordance with rules and procedures in a professional and dignified manner.
Huge news. A federal judge has just struck down the $15 billion defamation lawsuit filed by Donald Trump against the New York Times, citing a failure to meet federal rules requiring plain statement of claim. Donald Trump's trying to silence the media. It's not working this time. Give me a heart if you love this.
This is a breaking news alert. Donald Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times for purported defamation has just been thrown out by a federal judge in the Middle District of Florida, a Republican judge as well, a judge appointed by George H.W. Bush in 1991, Judge Merriday. He dismissed this case instantly, basically saying on its face, it is frivolous. This looks more like a vexatious press release than an actual complaint. He says, look, if you want to go back and bring a real lawsuit before my court, you can go and decide to do that. But you filed this 85-page slop, which barely even references what your actual grievance is with the New York Times. So get the hell out of my court and don't come back unless you are going to actually bring a legitimate lawsuit. I'm going to read for you the exact words of this George H.W. Bush appointed judge, Judge Merriday. We need to see more of this from federal judges. We previously did also in another case in Florida, and I'm glad that these Florida judges, federal judges, are no nonsense because Trump is making a mockery of our legal system and also his incredibly weak ego having him file these lawsuits to coerce companies from the Oval Office need to be called out by the judiciary. But do you remember back in 2023 when another federal judge in Florida, Judge Middlebrooks, called Donald Trump out and Alina Habba out and sanctioned them $1 million? Good. That's more of what we need to see. So the federal judge said that the lawsuit lacked any legitimate legal claims and said, I'll give you 28 days if you want to come back and file an actual lawsuit, but this ain't it. Let's take a look at what the judge wrote. Again, it's Judge Stephen Merriday, a George H.W. Bush Republican appointee from 1991. I want to read you every word so you hear it yourself. It's not all that long, so stay with me. It says, as every member of the bar that licenses lawyers, as every member of the bar of every federal court knows or is presumed to know, Rule 8A of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure requires that a complaint include a short and plain statement of the claim showing that the pleader is entitled to relief. Rule 8E1 helpfully adds that each averment of a pleading shall be simple, concise, and direct. Some pleadings are necessarily longer than others. The difference likely depends on the number of parties and claims, the complexity of the governing. This is a breaking news alert. Donald Trump's $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times for purported defamation has just been thrown out by a federal judge in the Middle District of Florida, a Republican judge as well, a judge appointed by George H.W. Bush in 1991, Judge Merriday. He dismissed this case instantly, basically saying on its face, it is frivolous. This looks more like a vexatious press release than an actual complaint. He says, look, if you want to go back and bring a real lawsuit before my court, you can go and decide to do that. But you filed this 85-page slop, which barely even references what your actual grievance is with the New York Times. So get the hell out of my court and don't come back unless you are going to actually bring a legitimate lawsuit. I'm going to read for you the exact words of this George H.W. Bush appointed judge, Judge Merriday. We need to see more of this from